Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to convince you beyond all reasonable doubt using 3 studies that raw meat is superior to cooked meat. So let's get into it. These are the studies to convince you that raw meat is superior. The first one is Pottinger's cats. So if it is true with human beings as it is with cats that nutritionally caused degeneration is passed down to our children, a sobering challenge stands before us. The second one is Alexander Ugolev was a physiologist whose works were recognized worldwide, and he performed an experiment where he placed 2 dead frogs, one cooked and one raw, into a carnivore's digestive fluids. The raw frog was completely dissolved, while the cooked frog was only superficially dissolved on its surface. And the third one is Nutritional and Physical Degeneration by Weston A. Price, who also worked with Pottenger. So they worked together, and Pottenger made this as well. So the first instances, my experience personally with raw foods is that it's better for digestion. Little spelling error there. Very sorry, guys. Better for digestion, more hydrating, and definitely more nourishing. So the first study is Pottinger's cats. These are the 3rd generation, and this is the 2nd generation, I'm pretty sure, of cooked meat kittens. Notice a smallness of head, retraction of mandible, and failure in development of orbital and malar arches. Yeah, so we're going to watch a little bit of this one.
Francis Pottenger at first followed in the footprints of his father. He and his staff continued to see tuberculosis patients as well as carry on in the research avenues that had shown some usefulness. But as chronicles of history so often express, the serendipities of science take unexpected twists. A phenomenon is observed quite by accident, which boggles the perspective and redirects new levels of creative inquiry. So it was for Dr. Pottenger. While working on his father's theory that tuberculosis was linked to adrenal gland deficiencies, he took on the task of standardizing adrenal extracts by using adrenalectomized cats. These were the steps required to standardize the biological extracts for later use with his tuberculosis patients.
So trying to heal people with tuberculosis, we'll skip forward.
The cats chosen for the study were apparently in perfect health. They were kept in open-air pens with a yard 4 feet wide, 7 feet high, and 12 feet long.
So they all had the same identical yard. That's how they kept it consistent.
They were fed cooked meat scraps from the sanitarium, which included internal organ meats and bones, along with some additional raw milk and cod liver oil. According to all known standards, this diet provided an optimal amount of nutrients. The cats seemed healthy. The adrenalectomy technique had been proven appropriate. Nevertheless, the study suffered from an unexplainably high mortality rate. Then came
the cats seemed healthy on paper, and for all intensive purposes, they should have been healthy, but they weren't. They were dying, you know, so they were trying to find out why.
Calculated twist of events. For some reason, many more cats were provided for the study than could ever have been fed using leftover cooked meat scraps from the sanitarium. So raw meat scraps from a nearby meatpacking plant replaced the cooked meat in the diets of certain cats. Within a very short period of time, the operative mortality rate of that group dropped significantly. The raw meat-fed animals began to survive the adrenalectomy extremely well, and they continued on in a superior quality of health. Pottenger had unexpectedly glimpsed a new facet of fundamental nutrition, and he was compelled to respond with a series of studies that would span the next 10 years of his medical career. To begin the study, a population of animals was selected which Pottenger aptly dubbed run-of-the-pen cats. He was not interested in physical perfection. His major concern was that his cats represented a normal sampling of animals, with the exception of cats with obvious deformities or disease were excluded. Needless to say,
so you just wanted normal cats, nothing too extreme on either scale, you know, not perfect, but not obviously imperfect as well.
When people from the nearby community heard of the study, more cats were mysteriously abandoned on the Pottenger doorstep than could ever be used in the experiment. Pottenger was intrigued by what he termed heat labile factors. Or, put as an experimental question, he asked, does the cooking process somehow render food nutritionally deficient, causing
thought?
eventual physiological degeneration.
It's crazy that question is even being asked. Obviously, it does. It kills it. It's pretty obvious when you destroy something and you lose. You can see when you cook something, liquid comes out of it. Steam comes off of it. So you're obviously losing things. And if you understand that these things are made up of other things, smaller things that you can't see, and you are losing something like water, steam, fat, oil from the food, and you can clearly see that you are losing nutritional value.
A basic diet was designed consisting of raw meat, viscera, bones, a small amount of raw milk, and cod liver oil. Each day,
Not sure about the cod liver oil, just feed them cod liver, but fair enough.
this basic diet accounted for 1/3 of the total.
And to be honest, it was probably better cod liver oil. It probably wasn't shelf-stable cod liver oil. It might have come in a jar or something that was extracted from actual cod liver rather than, with additives like you find on the store shelves now in a little bottle. So it might be better.
Dietary intake of the animals. The remaining 2/3 of the diet was the dimension of experimental manipulation. One group of cats received raw meat or cooked meat along with the basic diet. The other group of cats were given raw milk, pasteurized milk, evaporated milk, or sweetened condensed milk. Each cat's daily diet then consisted of 1/3 of the basic diet, plus 2/3 of the prepared food which was under study. And once assigned to a specific group, the animal's diet was held constant.
Okay, so they remained...
Although there were two different studies, one focusing on milk and the other on meat, the results of both studies were nearly identical. Over the next 10-year period, Pottenger observed and recorded numerous physiological changes in the experimental animals and their offspring. First, you will observe the raw milk animals. They move about the pen with a great deal of agility and coordination.
Don't look very agile there.
Notice the sheen to the fur, and the normal sexual interest displayed toward the male in the next pen.
Okay, so there you go. Look, there's an apt point. They become more interested in the opposite gender because they're eating the correct diet. Who would have thought?
Would be expected they land on their feet when thrown in the air. The pasteurized milk-fed cats, shown here, move about the pen in a manner quite different from the raw milk cats. The cat in the foreground actually developed arthritis during the experiment. They are lethargic, much like animals in a zoo.
Okay, so the
when thrown a short distance, these animals show a slightly impaired sense of coordination.
Slightly impaired.
Dental deterioration was also common. Note the abscesses above the molars, the reddish tats to the gums, and the soft gingiva. With evaporated milk, there was even greater deterioration. When the study was begun, this cat was
That's because
better.
evaporated milk is basically milk with all of the fat taken out. It's basically just sugar. It's basically just condensed into sugar. So it's like all lactose.
Developed than any animal shown thus far. The sweetened condensed milk-fed cats not only had their milk heat processed, but there was the addition of sugar. They are nervous animals. Again, there was marked deterioration in coordination.
Because obviously the addition of sugar, they become nervous, they become scatty, they jittery, things like that. Obviously, things you can clearly see in, especially children who are fed too much sugar.
And dental abnormalities.
Of course.
Notice particularly the abscesses and the purple tone to the membrane of the mouth.
I mean, you can't really see the purple tone, but you got to take the word for it.
For a further comparison, here is another example of normal development. Notice the firm gingiva, the normal coloring tones, the beautiful broad mouth, the full jaw with obvious power. This animal happens to be a male.
Broad mouth, full jaw, proper jaw, well developed.
But the comparison is nonetheless valid. Here is another illustrative comparison. The raw milk female gets in 20 or 30 licks for every one of the pasteurized milk female, then leaps away in disgust.
Okay, so quicker reaction times, being able to react to things a lot quicker because your brain moves faster. You're not overstimulated and then crashing all the time like they would be consuming condensed milk or, whatever modern crap that normal people eat these days.
These were all first-generation animals, born to perfectly healthy parents, and who themselves were healthy at the beginning of the study. Disturbing as these observations might be, the impaired balance, the lack of energy, the dental deterioration, some of the most significant findings emerged as Pottenger extended his study down to the second and third generations.
So it got even worse when the pasteurized milk cats, the cooked meat cats, they had children, they reproduced. It got even worse, the second generation and the third generation as well.
Almost immediately, Pottenger noticed that animals fed the raw meat diet for 2 generations appeared larger than the same generation of cooked meat cats.
So they were
At 16
larger.
weeks, the second generation raw meat cat weighs 2,000 grams, while the second generation cooked meat animal only comes up to 1,600 grams. Compare the black kitten with this raw meat kitten, the sheen, the sparkle of the eyes, the well-developed face. Nutritional studies often look at skeletal development as a rather vital index of dietary sufficiency. This is a raw meat animal with a full, round face. A later examination of the skull showed a firmly developed zygomatic arch.
Firmly
The
developed.
frontal sinuses were complete, and calcium content of the bones throughout the body ranged from 12 to 17% by weight. The skulls of adult cats with a long ancestry of raw food diets are surprisingly constant. Here we find the development of a
Because that's what they're meant to eat. Although they are kind of genetically modified animals, domestic cats, but you know, it's the ancestors of those cats just ate raw meat. They don't eat cooked meat. I've even come across people who talk about dogs, and it was like a dog trainer who's pretty famous on Instagram, or pretty popular at least, and he said cooked meat has better outcomes for dogs than raw meat always. So
second generation cooked meat animal. The head has begun to flatten and is actually smaller than the comparable raw meat cat. The skull shows the major reasons for this change. The zygomatic arch is not completed. The nasal development is somewhat irregular, and
mouth breathing cats, who would have thought?
the calcium content has fallen to 10%.
Okay, so calcium content from, what was it, 17 to 10?
Third generation cooked meat animals show the most remarkable
Oh,
skeletal
look at that recessed mandible cat.
change. The skull is considerably smaller. It is flat with pointed features. The skull shows a poorly developed zygomatic arch. The bones are paper thin and soft like sponge rubber.
Wow.
The frontal sinuses had developed in a peculiar fashion, and the calcium content of the bones had fallen to a low 3% by weight.
So this is just a study on cats with 3 generations, okay? So imagine humans, I'd say probably about 3 generations we've been experimented on now. I mean, it's longer than that, but I mean, with the processed foods and stuff like that, it's really got bad in probably the last 3 to 4 generations, and you can really see how that affects humanity, you know? Most, if you look at if you look at pictures from your grandparents and things like that, you would clearly see that if you looked at pictures from your grandparents' era or even further back, you would clearly see that those people developed properly, you know, even if they had different features and may not have been, some may have better features than others and may be more attractive than others, but they were definitely a lot more well developed than we are now. We're completely dysgenic, and we're in a very bad situation, human beings.
Activity level is another index of interest. In this pen, there is an obvious difference in activity level between the raw meat animals and the cooked meat animals. One of these cooked meat kittens actually had a broken back, resulting from a failure in development.
So one had a broken back because of a failure of development, and you know, human beings now would say, "Oh, it's just genetics," but you know, we know that's cold.
Moving into the third generation of experimental animals, the degeneration was even more pronounced.
Wow.
The smaller animal is a cooked meat kitten and is actually the oldest of the 3. The kitten on the left is a second-generation raw meat cat, and the one on the right is a second-generation cooked meat cat. Here is a second-generation cooked meat mother with her third-generation offspring. She has a male body configuration. Her offspring developed nasal and ocular allergies.
So the female had a male body alteration, or I don't know what you said, composition, but it was like it was a male. And this cat, look at that, wow, has a nasal problem.
From this same litter came an asthmatic kitten, purportedly the first to be reported in the research literature. Again,
I mean, there's plenty of studies that show that raw milk reduces eczema, asthma, any kind of allergies.
there is marked dental deterioration, abscesses, poor coloring, and gingival irritation. Pronounced exhaustion was a typical observation among the third generation of cooked meat kittens, as well as impaired coordination. This
Exhaustion.
third generation cooked meat kitten had over 24 fractures, resulting from a failure in development. And finally, this little third generation cooked meat kitten was unable to release its claws from the hardware cloth, and probably would have died had not the assistant taken it down. At this juncture in the study, a most interesting development emerged.
See, helpless, absolutely helpless. You know, a cat should not be getting stuck. You know, think about human beings now. We're helpless. We're always like looking to someone, come and save me, come and save me. I'm so broken. You know.
The cooked meat cats were unable to successfully reproduce after the third generation. Most were void of sexual interest.
See, what did we say now? We're getting to the point where most human beings are going to be infertile by 2050, and we're not far off. It's probably taking a bit longer in humans. I don't know how, but we've already started the infertility and stuff like that. That started quite a while ago. Human beings aren't supposed to be infertile. You're not supposed to be born to be infertile. That just makes no sense. Everything on this earth has the ability to reproduce. It's not, you know, when it's natural, it's supposed to reproduce. That's how the world is. You know, you're not supposed to be infertile. These problems, they act like it's just all, it's all genetic. It's just genetic, but it is kind of, because obviously they're passing on. If your dad's, I mean, if your dad's infertile, ignore me. But if your dad is like got problems in that department, and you know, he could only manage to have 1 or 2 kids, maybe, or something like that. The next generation will suffer a lot more, but if your dad's infertile.
And those that had attempted to mate could only produce stillborn litters. On the other hand, the raw meat animals continued to reproduce healthy offspring.
So even if they did produce litters, they were stillborns.
Generation after generation. The notion that specific nutritional factors in food may be destroyed by heat processing is obviously not far-fetched. Physiological deterioration down the generations is quite graphic, and according to Pottenger, the process was found to be reversible only with great difficulty. He did demonstrate that the animals could make considerable gains towards physiological normalcy, but it took 4 generations of a raw food diet before the animals regained their native structure and original level of well-being.
Okay, so it took even longer for them to regenerate again, longer than they took to degenerate, you know, so 4 generations to regenerate all the traits back again. That's if they could even reproduce in the first place. So
an interesting sidelight came 6 months after the experiment's conclusion.
This is interesting as well.
When volunteer weeds emerged in the fallow pens. In the raw milk pens, the plants flourished. In the pasteurized milk pens, the growth was somewhat less hardy. Plants in the evaporated milk pens struggled, and the sweetened condensed milk pen speaks for itself. At a later date, navy beans were planted in the respective pens with parallel results. What are we to make of these numerous...
So in the healthy cat's pen, the weeds grew stronger and taller. Obviously, people think weeds are really bad, but it just means growth. It just means life. Life was able to reproduce in that pen where the cats had been defecating and stuff like that, fertilizing the soil over time, compared to the ones that had terrible feces, you know, unhealthy feces, which led to unhealthy growth of the plants, you know, which is why it's important to have healthy cows and healthy other animals, sheep and things like that, because then the life cycle carries on, you know.
Observations. I suppose.
Okay, so we're gonna jump off this one, and get back to the presentation again. So what did this study show? It showed raw meat is better for animals, quite clearly. Raw meat is also better for soil and plants, which we saw right at the end there. And cooked food causes degeneration and underdevelopment. Those things are very easily observable. The experiment was absolutely foolproof. You know, they only changed certain factors and variables. They kept them in the same kind of areas. You know, treated them the same way. So, and they used all similar starting points of these animals. You know, it's very, very highly unlikely that any it's very, very highly unlikely that any of that was anything to do with genetics, direct genetics, just something that's random. Obviously, we know about epigenetic factors, things that you can pass on through nutritional deficiency and stuff like that to your children, but obviously actual genetics, it's not as simple as it seems. So the next one is Alexander Ugolev, his raw frog study. Ugolev first published the raw versus cooked frog digestion experiment in 1984. George Orwell. Ugolev detailed the induced autolysis phenomenon as a mechanism of digestion. So the raw frog was digested completely. The raw frog was digested completely in gastric acid, whereas boiled frog was only superficially affected. The authors found that native raw tissues broke down more effectively and completely than the same tissues after heat denaturation, demonstrating that the food's own enzymes contribute significantly to its digestion. We've got no video for this one, but it's just like this is the analysis of the study. So while Ugolev's original publications were Russian, the core findings have been noted in English. This experiment is cited in nutrition literature as evidence that raw foods can digest themselves. It seems to be been forgotten about nowadays, but hey ho. This is his books. If you are interested in the references, these are the references right there. And I just wanted to get to this bit at the end. Okay, so I think this slide was actually meant to be over here, but I got the order messed up. So in this experiment, where is it now? It's in this setup, the raw frog and a briefly boiled frog were placed in a chamber of gastric juices from a carnivore. Initially, the cooked frog's connective tissues began to break down faster, matching conventional expectations. However, over the next 2-3 days, the raw frog completely dissolved, self-digested, while the boiled frog's structures remained largely intact. You can see that there. This demonstrated that the raw frog's own enzymes released from its cells by the acid helped digest it. Evidence of food autolysis at work. So Ugolev emphasized that the native proteins are hydrolyzed faster than denatured proteins in this context. Obviously, this is a study on carnivores' digestive juices, and whether you think we're carnivore or not, I mean, it's not really up for debate in my mind, but maybe for some people. But this, convinces me that human beings do thrive when we consume raw meat. This study showed that raw meat digests better in carnivore stomach acid. It also showed that enzymes in raw food aid digestion, and cooked meat digested faster but not better. Next, we have the final study, Weston A. Price, which is one of my favorite studies because it's so in-depth and so interesting. He studied native populations and how when they eat a regular diet, their natural diet, compared to when they eat a processed modern diet, they start to degenerate. Obviously, Weston A. Price was a dentist, so he primarily went to look at dental problems and do dental research, but he ended up finding so much more than just the dentistry of these people. They found that the bone structures were a lot better. You can see here, this guy has a narrow palate. These are wide palates, wide faces. Look at how wide that palate is compared to, something like his or his. The degeneration of these teeth. Look at how broken these teeth are compared to the perfect teeth here. And he also found that these people, just look at the body compositions, look how lean and strong they are, look at their bone structures, every single one of them, incredible bone density, so he found a lot more than just the dentistry. So we'll go into Weston A. Price's old footage now.
Hey, I think that's a pretty good fine. Good fine boy, yes boy.
So this is near Sydney, Australia.
Number of the teeth have decayed cavities in them. And that has happened because he's not eating enough fish or not getting enough milk. Hey, you're a fine big strong fellow. How old are you? Right. You look as though you were a giant. My. Where'd you come from? Well, that's the place. Do you have lots of fish when you were little boy? Yes. That's the stuff that makes good bodies. If everybody do that, the most universal disease in the world is the decay of the teeth. And unfortunately, we have not known the cause until we've gone to the primitive people to find how they prevent tooth decay. Our difficulty is that we are adding too much white flour and sugar and do not get enough of the foods that carry the minerals and vitamins. when the primitive people adopt the
Look
food
at
of modern
this.
civilization.
Weston A. Price understood this at this time, that the vitamins and minerals are in the meat. They're in the fat of these animals. They're not in fruits and vegetables.
Their teeth decay just as ours do.
He first visited Switzerland to study whether greater nutrition could be obtained from foods produced at higher altitudes, such as in the Swiss Alpines. He discovered the isolated Lechental Valley, a community compelled by its very isolation to eat locally produced foods. Here he made physical examinations of teeth, recorded data, collected menus, and made photographs of the people. Samples of food and saliva were taken for later analysis in his laboratory. The children had well-formed teeth, good physiques, and an apparent immunity to disease and dental problems.
But dental health was good, obviously, dental development. But yeah, dental health was good.
Dairy products,
Mainly dairy, raw dairy, of
rye
course.
bread,
Rye
and
bread.
plant foods such as potatoes and cabbage.
Okay.
Meat was eaten sparingly. Usually,
I mean, this is, we are deep into the Neolithic era here, so obviously there are foods like that around.
once a week. In contrast, Swiss children living in modernized districts had widespread tooth decay, facial and dental arch deformities, and greater susceptibility to disease. Their diet, refined flour, a high intake of sweets,
Just like we saw in the Pottinger's cat study, the zygomatic arches, the dental arches, dental health, all declining.
chocolate, sweetened fruits, and a reduced use of dairy products.
Okay, so reduced dairy, like the Pottinger's cats, obviously. Reduced dairy is almost like pasteurized dairy. Condensed sweetened milk, almost like the sweets that these are eating, the chocolates and the refined sugars. Now we're going to move to Scotland.
Dr. Price visited the Outer Hebrides, located off the coast of Scotland. Here he made similar studies among the Gaelic people who inhabit these isolated islands. These rather barren
So these are
islands
native Gaelic people.
The islands are often subjected to rough seas and blizzards from the North Atlantic. Most of the people are of early Scottish descent, possessing a physique that rivals that found almost any
Look at
place
that,
in the world.
very well developed.
Their teeth are of unusual perfection. The basic foods of these islanders are fish and oat products, such as oatmeal,
Fish
whole grain breads, and shellfish.
and shellfish, okay, yeah.
But when the islanders were exposed to the foods of commerce, it was a repetition of what had been found in Switzerland.
Yep.
Bad teeth and general physical degeneration was the result. For example, these two brothers lived under the same roof, but ate differently. The older
Two
ate
brothers.
primitive foods and was in excellent health.
So the older one ate primitive foods.
The younger had extensive tooth decay and a poor physique from eating the foods of commerce.
So there you go, two brothers, similar, very extremely similar genetics, but different outcomes.
In 1933, Dr. and Mrs. Price visited Alaska to
This is where it really gets interesting now.
study the Eskimos, one of the last examples of a Stone Age people. The areas they visited were isolated.
He says last examples of a Stone Age people, and that just means because they eat raw meat, I'm pretty sure.
Travel was often very difficult. Among the Eskimos, Dr. Price discovered examples of physical excellence and dental perfection seldom found anywhere else in the world. Living in isolated districts on native foods, they had uniformly broad dental arches and typical Eskimo facial patterns. Their general health was excellent. The Eskimos ate foods rich in minerals and vitamins, mainly caribou, kelp, berries, fresh fish, organs of large sea animals, and seal oil. When the Eskimos were exposed to the foods of commerce, there was a marked rise in dental decay.
So they was eating,
The Eskimos ate foods rich in
so they
minerals
was
and
eating
vitamins, mainly caribou,
caribou, yeah, which would be raw, of course.
kelp. The Eskimos ate foods rich in minerals and vitamins, mainly caribou,
Raw caribou, of course.
kelp, berries,
fresh fish, organs of large sea animals, and seal
Fresh fish, meaning raw fish. Organs of large sea animals, probably raw.
oil.
Well, definitely raw, I think.
When the Eskimos were exposed
And
to the
seal
foods of
oil.
commerce, there was a marked rise in dental decay and a change in facial and dental arch formation. Dental service was not readily available, and dental pain was often acute among these people.
But just look at these people, honestly, like how well developed they all
Living
are.
in isolated districts on native food,
Just look how
they had uniformly broad dental arches.
Just look
and
how wide the
typical
faces
Eskimo
are.
facial patterns.
crazy.
Their general health was
Honestly, crazy. Look, really extremely wide faces. Look. If these people, obviously they live in cold climates, but if these people came to the West and just lost a bit of facial fat, stuff like that, they'd all be models, you know? If they ate properly, they'd all be models. So let's get on to the next one, which is...
and dental pain.
So they were degenerating, yeah, obviously on the modern diet.
Indians inhabited northern British Columbia and the Yukon Territory.
So we're going to the
Area
Yukon now.
inside the Rocky Mountain Range. This isolated area had to be reached by water and over roads that often were almost impassable. Long ago, these Indians discovered that the white man got scurvy when forced to live for long periods of time in this area where fresh fruits and vegetables were often not available.
So the white people were getting scurvy because there was not fresh fruits and vegetables available that they were used to.
To avoid this dreaded disease, the Indians ate the adrenal gland and organs of moose and caribou.
So adrenal glands and organs of moose and caribou, okay? So they ate these raw, of course, because vitamin C is heat sensitive. They eat most of their meat raw. They eat the adrenal glands and organs. You know, people believe that you do need to eat fruit. It's kind of a myth. You don't really need to eat fruit for vitamin C. You can get it from organs and adrenal glands quite clearly because they used it to fix scurvy. So this idea that you need vitamin C from fruits is kind of false, especially in parts of the world like this where there's not many times where there's fruit around. You know, there is some seasonal berries and stuff like that, but not
Gave
always.
them the necessary vitamin C, the vitamin that prevents scurvy. Primitive groups of Indians consistently had well-formed facial and dental arches that represented the tribal pattern.
Same thing again. Look, handsome guy, well-developed faces. Same thing again.
But new generations, exposed to the foods of commerce obtained at trading posts or through government agencies, showed marked changes
So
in
they obtain food through government agencies, yeah.
facial and dental arch forms. Extensive tooth decay was quite evident.
Tooth decay, bad dental arches. Look, degeneration. Again, as usual.
By 1934, Dr. Price decided to study the various people that inhabit the many islands of the South Pacific.
So these are South Pacific people.
Dr. and Mrs. Price
I
worked with these
mean,
people, collecting and studying.
it's no different. It's just the same thing again. So if you want to watch this full documentary, I'll link it in the description. But yeah, it's the same thing again. So this is my testimony. Obviously, 2 years ago, or just over 2 years ago, I was a vegan. And you can quite clearly see the dark eye circles. You know, very puffy face. Even though I was rake thin. Honestly, I was really thin, but I had a puffy face, droopy eyelids, and things like that. You know, not very good. This is even 1 year ago. I started cooked carnivore and probably just started to eat raw foods here, maybe. But I still had the dark eye circles. I still had the upper eyelid exposure. And just a really grey look on my face, you know, just a very bleak, vacant look, you know. And now, here's me now. Obviously, you can see me on the camera, but my upper eyelid exposure here, look, you can see that the collagen under my eyes here, you can see it there and around here, that the collagen in my eyes is not quite as much as here, which is why I have the upper eyelid exposure in these photos, and you can quite clearly see it here as well, the dark under eyes and eradicated dark under eyes. So even just the I don't know, it's just, I feel like, so yeah, that's it's quite obvious, and the face just looks leaner. Like, look here, I was actually leaner here, I had less fat on me here, but my face looks like it has less fat here, but more structure, more presence, you know, more prominence. And how did I achieve this? So obviously raw meat, especially fat and organs, the correct movement, breathing and tongue posture, and sunlight grounding air quality, and removing toxins from my diet. So this is like a very simplified description of what I did, but these are the main basic fundamentals of what you need to do to actually improve your facial structure, to improve these things, your biomarkers, the things that make you look unhealthy. And people can just see that, and even people who don't understand biomarkers, who don't understand true health, they can just see that you don't look good and you don't look healthy. Look at the color of the skin here, completely gray, horrible skin compared to, you know, even here it got a lot better when I started eating meat again, but you know, here more full coloring. So yeah, how can I do the same? These are 3 people who followed the method essentially, and look, the same things again. The upper eyelid exposure, dark under eyes, gone, yeah. And obviously the coloring's a bit different on this one. I think it's different lighting and stuff like that, but just overall facial structure just looks a lot better, you know. You can clearly see that the facial structure just looks more angular and just better in general, you know, less sagging. The skin even looks clearer. You can't really see his forehead, but everything just looks way better. He looks here like... He honestly looks here like he's having a very bad time, you know, so fair play. And here again, look at the terrible skin quality, dark under eyes, upper eyelid exposure, low collagen in these areas. Look, much more collagen here again, yeah? So much more collagen. Under eye bags, dark eye circles gone, skin completely clear, you can quite clearly see all of the same things again. And we'll go on to the third one, exactly the same things, yet again, low... you know, saggy face, dark eye circles, no, bloated, but bloated on the face, of course. But this guy actually put on muscle here, so he put on weight here and actually improved his facial structure. You can clearly see way more angular face, just more prominent jaw and chin. His eye area is just a lot better. Here you can see the complete difference, the under eye areas as well. So all the same things, 3 different people, all the same things as what happened to me as well. So what does it take to transform? So these people, they had dedication to their health. So if you want to do this, you have to have dedication to your health. You have to think that health is over everything. Health over everything is your new mindset. You know, you don't have to worry about the money that it's going to cost. You don't have to worry about the time. You don't have to worry about other people's opinions. You just have to worry about what it's going to do for you as a person, and then worry about everything else later. Everything else just explains itself. You know, people thought I was weird at first when I started eating raw meat, and now people come up to me and say, oh my God, like, what do you do? Like, and my mom, somebody who was pretty skeptical, she didn't even eat red meat. She started to eat red meat again now because of me, because of the transformation that I've made eating raw meat. And she even makes comments all the time, wow, like, you look so much better than you used to do. I can't believe it. What have you done? I mean, she knows what I've done, but yeah. So they also need the willpower to overcome years of bad habits. So obviously people nowadays are so brainwashed and they're so addicted to all of these things that we've grown up on, things that aren't necessarily healthy, things that Weston A. Price warned against, you know, processed foods and all these other things, but it's got 100 times worse even since those studies. So we have to overcome all of these addictions to food, dopamine addictions and things like that. It's really incredibly hard. You know, it's not actually the easiest thing in the world to do. And you know, anyone who makes this transition is a credit to themselves and a credit to their families, because they're taking steps that nobody else would, even when people think they're weird, even when people think, you know, it's not going to do anything. People think, oh, what's the difference? What's the difference between cooked and raw meat? What's the difference between eating cooked meat and eating a balanced diet? What's the difference between eating raw meat and a balanced diet? Like, what are these different levels even going to do? You know, is it really going to make much difference? Just eat a balanced diet, just count your calories, just go to the gym, just be happy and, you know, be brainwashed and la 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 in La La Land, just be part of the Truman Show. So commitment and consistency, of course. So you need to apply these methods over and over and over and over again, every single day, every week, every month, every year, you know. So these things, they take a lot of consistency. It took me years, as you can see from the pictures. This was even way into the meat consumption times that I was eating cooked meat and some raw meat here on this photo, and it took a lot to get me to here. You know, it took not just nutrition but just so much consistency, commitment to going out every day in the sun, going for nice long walks, making sure my posture's right, my tongue posture's right. So things like that are incredibly important. And you know, how can I really do the same? The best way is to join the DNA community. We'll teach you exactly how to upgrade yourself. I'm just going to take you through a few transformations here. Let's take you through. So we have here Gigi. Look, the same kind of things again. We're looking at the dark under eyes again, upper eyelid exposure. Once again, bad skin yet again. Look, all cleared, all cured. Facial structure, more angularity, better eye area. Of course, the eye area is really, like, you know, very fixable. Honestly, it's quite clear and evident from these photos that these things are possible. We have people transforming the skin. This is just a straight up skin transformation. This is the after, and these are the befores. Just look, that is terrible acne, honestly, very, very terrible acne. Also, we have an extreme example, which I wanted to show you. This is just in the regular community here. Let's find this for you all. Here we go. So this is Thea. She is 34 from Germany, and she grew up with a lot of raw pork meat, but then moved on to vegan, lots of vegetables, even urine therapy, long juice fasting. I think this is in order to fix her skin, but this honestly is the worst case of eczema that I've ever seen. It's such terrible eczema. So bad. 2016, and you can clearly see it gets worse over time. 2018, 19, 20, 20, 21. Look at how terrible that is. It's scaly, and that it just looks unbelievably bad, like something that you would see from somebody who's been in a fire or something like that. So and then moving on to the afters, look at the difference. Wow, it's just insane, just completely insane. But really, what other health coaches are actually achieving these kind of transformations? Obviously this transformation was achieved outside of our community, but the same rules applied. She focused on raw meat and carnivore, but fell into sugar addiction, which is probably why she joined the community. So she's probably falling back to her old habits again, which is what we were talking about before. The consistency to be able to carry on is really important. You know, once you move away from those foods, it does become a lot easier, but sometimes people can just end up being around certain people and ends up rubbing off on them. And, you know, maybe just this one time I'll eat this, and then food addiction is very dangerous. It's almost like a drug addiction. You wouldn't give something very addictive and dangerous like H or C to somebody who was addicted to those substances. Same with alcohol. You wouldn't start giving an alcoholic just one drink, you know, at Christmas. So you have your Christmas dinner, you eat all these sugary foods, the processed crap, and then Boxing Day, you think, oh, it's just Boxing Day. Then you eat that crap again, and then it gets to New Year's, and then I'll make a New Year's resolution so I don't keep eating this crap. But then you carry on and carry on and carry on. So it's easily done. And that's why she joined the community, to get a bit more accountability. Obviously, this transformation was achieved outside of our community, but we are promoting the same exact values, what she used to heal herself. So, yeah, no other health coaches are achieving transformations like these. Honestly, I promise you, there's no one else around. People are literally gaining their fertility back. I wish I could find all of the, let me just search actually fertility or period, and we'll see all the people that got their period back. If we search period here, we have painless period after months. So the first time after months of trying this diet, they had a first painless period. Again, no more painful periods yet again. Happy tears. Look, these are two people finally got my period back. This is Gigi we saw before. Hi everyone. I wanted to share this post after battling anorexia and bodybuilding after years of this. My 20-year-old period. After years of this, as a 20-year-old, I got my period back this morning. I'm so grateful and blessed. I thank you all, especially Drew and Alex, who've made this journey possible. Like, I'm actually getting goosebumps all over. It's such an emotional thing. So happy tears, my period is back. I have not had a period this year yet until yesterday. I lost it when I developed an eating disorder, which many people do, food binges, things like that, which we're talking about. And the results are shocking. Also, I've only been doing high-fat carnivore for about a month, and the results are shocking. So after a month of just high-fat carnivore, including raw meat and raw dairy, but also ate cooked meat and fruit and honey, which is, you know, it helps to switch, it helps people transition and stuff like that. We don't discourage people who eat cooked meat as well. You know, some people can't even source a good source of raw meat, so it's not such a big deal. But obviously bringing in the raw meats and the raw dairy is the game changer. That's what's going to make you see the most. So we're doing everything, essentially. We're helping people lose weight whilst getting their hormonal health in check, whilst clearing their acne, whilst removing upper eyelid exposure and all these things. We are doing everything, and there's no coaches around. You know, if you go to whatever health coach you can find, you won't find results like these anywhere. You literally won't find them. You won't find people losing weight whilst actually gaining more hormonal health, whilst clearing acne. Most coaches would have you on a lean diet, you know, low fat, high sugar, things like that. Don't fear sugar, 80-20 approach, eating processed foods on cheat days and things like that. And you would end up losing fertility, but you might lose weight, but you'll lose fertility. Your skin might get worse. You might lose collagen. You might appear to be much more tired, develop dark under eye circles because they've got you doing so many excessive workouts and stuff like that. These people aren't even working out, honestly. They're just doing steps, most of them, especially the girls. You know, some of the guys just do bodyweight stuff and stuff like that. So most of the people aren't even going to gyms and stuff like that. We're not having people do excessive workouts and crazy stuff like that. You know, it's so simple. Honestly, when you just switch over your diet to the natural human diet, your health outcomes are going to be inconceivably better. You know, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind about that. And if you do need help with motivation, if you do need help where to start, where to source and things like that, the DNA community is the best place to be for this kind of information. We have so many positive members in there. We're not like degenerates. We've not got a load of people who just care about the way you look. And, you know, all these people here, they offer something personal. They have their own stories, and we have a map feature on school where you can meet people. We've got people who've created their own group chats out of this and created friendship groups from our community, which is so powerful. You know, I'm getting goosebumps again just thinking about it. We're connecting all of these people together who are all on this same journey, and it's so magical. Honestly, I can't speak highly enough about what we've achieved and what we're still yet to achieve. You know, I want to spread this to as many people as possible all around the world, and hopefully everybody in the world eventually realizes that this is the proper human diet, this is the way to live. I doubt it. I severely doubt it, because most people are very, very brainwashed. Most people I speak to don't even realize that raw meat consumption is healthier. They think it's weird, maybe they think it's dangerous and things like that. So the more people we spread this to, the better. And even if it's not getting people into my community, even if it's just people watching the videos and becoming more accustomed and starting to do things on their own, that's perfectly fine. I just really want to spread this message as far as possible to the whole world, and hopefully everybody really realizes sooner rather than later. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate you all listening to the end. If you did get here, leave a comment telling me that you got to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, if you think that I could have changed anything, leave a like, subscribe. Thanks for watching.